I'm going to come to you first. We're looking at Group D now. Australia, obviously going through behind France, but Denmark finishing bottom of that group. Surely none of us saw this one coming.
I didn't have it. No, I had it to go through. Definitely, I was expecting a lot more from the side. And once again, it was how we say strange to see the team not even pushing the intensity. You know that when you're going to play against Australia, the only thing that you have to cope with it is the intensity, the pressure. They were in need. They needed to score that goal. So you need to handle that. If you handle that at the end, you got more talent and more capacity, more arguments to go through. But at the end, once again, we've seen Eriksen on the ball trying to bring the ball forward, and no one is managing to create chances. No one is managing to get that ball and capitalize it. And that's the big problem from this Denmark side, that at the end, I was surprised. Once again, I was expecting Brightwood to do something to make really a threat after where he's been coming to this moment at Barcelona, not getting involved. I was expecting that he was going to shine a little bit more, and well, in and out of the national team is not always the easy way. So it was very, very, very disappointing to see Denmark leave. But at the end, it was about Australia. They managed the tempo of the game. That leggy goal that actually was one of the most beautiful one. He managed to do that kind of stop and go, and finish it in a fantastic way. 21 years old give you that. Is not the first time that he's in a World Cup. That's give you a lot of experience, a lot of understanding what is needed to do in every moment. So I'm happy to see them going through. Not sure if they are gonna have everything that you need to have to go to the next round, but at least they are there, and that's, I think, a fantastic reward after the big effort.
I want to take you back to that golden moment for them, and this is really the golden moment for them qualifying, getting this goal, shock result against Denmark. But let's go back to that game against France. I think the confidence that we're seeing from Australia going forward stems from that early goal against the French, where I think it was Goodwin who gets the goal. Matthew Leckie is one who gets you the assist. In 2014, Matthew Leckie was part of that Australia team that was scoring goals for fun in their group. I mean, they had Tim Cahill getting on the end of quality service from the likes of Leckie, but that experience, Leckie, a part of their Asian Cup victory, which was hosted in Australia, those are the winning experiences that filter down through your side. You talked about experience, Lucho and Nigel, that make the world of difference for Spain and for other countries. For Australia, I think that grit that has epitomized them through their World Cup qualifying campaign. This is an Australian team that struggled in World Cup qualifying, had to go through the playoffs narrowly through penalty kicks. It was one-way traffic with Peru. They squeaked by to get here. So for them to get 6 points, 2 wins in their group, massive. And I think one of their unsung heroes next to Leckie, Mitchell Duke. On the goal they scored, Leckie, mazy run, Riley McCree, who's been playing well for Middlesbrough in the EFL Championship, beautiful through ball, but it was Mitchell Duke who held the ball up. If you were going to be a counterattack team, Nigel, you've pointed this out, you either need pace, but you also need a big man who can be that target guy that's going to draw out the center back and then allow spaces and running lanes to create passing angles. And I think Australia, they managed this game to perfection. And moving forward, hey, if they go and get blown out, it's been an absolute success at this World Cup, but this is why you play the games. Anything can happen.
Muted again, Nudge.
He's 2 for 2.
You were making a lot of sense, though.
Yeah.
That's not funny. I think for me, Mike, like I said, the best word you used there for me was the word grit. I think grit is part of the Australian culture. And when you look at this Australian team, a lot of the Australian culture comes in it. Very hard to beat, grit, determined. They've got a great blueprint. And as I've always said, if you want to sit as a team, if you want to coach a team to be defensively organized, hard to beat, hard to break down, you need an outlet. Now, Australia don't have raw pace or raw pace or, blistering pace to cause you problems. But what they have is football intelligence. And it's great football intelligence in how they took the goal. Because being clinical is another part. Once you get forward, you've got to have an end product. Either you have a cross or a shot, something that ends with an end product, not getting up there so far up the pitch and giving possession away cheaply and turning it over, especially in the World Cup. You have to have an end product, and it has to be done and dusted, and you reset again. I think Australia have a fantastic blueprint to go and cause some problems for a lot of teams because they're never going to give up. They're going to fight. But one thing that they've got, like I said, is being able to be clinical. And that plays a big part in a World Cup tournament. You have to be clinical and take your chances, and that was what Australia have done.
Absolutely. We've got some great comments coming in, and here's one of them at the moment. How great would an Australian win be, especially if the US pull off the upset, Australia against the USA in the final 8? I wonder what that would have paid. Well, if you'd put your money on that, you'd have made more than you would have made on any of our predictions so far in this World Cup, I can guarantee. But let's turn our attention now to, well, let's have a look at the predictions. So here we go, the retired players division.
Ooh,
What have we got today's points? Oh, it's been a great day for Nigel Reo-Coker, 10. Well, Ian Joy not showing his face on the show today. Understandable when you see that kind of return. But Mike Lahoud, 5. Not too shabby. And here we go, contributors division. Well, okay, middling there, 6 points. I'm leading the fantasy team, so that's all that I'm really bothered about. That's the real quiz. But no, James Benge rocketing away. Not the best of days for Fabrizio Romano. But let's turn our attention now to France, and I'm going to come to you first, Nigel. So you've got the French going through. Obviously, they lost to Tunisia, so that was a bit unexpected. But also at the same time, when you look at the amount of changes that Deschamps made, and yeah, we can make an argument that it's understandable in many ways. I mean, certainly resting someone like Theo Hernandez, where you don't have any other depth at left back because of some of the decisions that Deschamps has made. Well, Nigel was so daunted by the potential question coming his way that he's jumped off. So,
I'm happy to go. I'm happy to go.
Well, okay,
Go on,
Lucho, I'll take you instead. But,
if you see that I'm leaving as well, yes, ask to that is right there.
Oh, is it? So, okay, Nigel's dropped off for the moment. But anyway, Lucho, so are we really that surprised by the result given the changes that Deschamps made? And should we really read too much into it given that France were qualified before the game? I mean, for example, if Mbappe doesn't have that slight knock, surely he plays, maybe even racks up another goal. But it was a very uninspired performance by the French. But also at the same time, there were just so many reserve players out. I mean, it wasn't even the reserve goalkeeper. Mondonda's there as the third choice goalkeeper, set a record, broke a record set by Bernard Lamar today to be the oldest player for France in an international. Surely Deschamps perhaps didn't need to rotate as deeply as he did.
No, I think that you try to rotate, give a chance to as many players as possible. At the end, it's 26 players that one are involved, and you haven't seen much rotation in most of the teams. 1, 2 changes, 4 in some occasions, but most of them are always the same one. So at the end, you have the chance of rotate, and much more because you know that you're gonna go through. Bringing your best players into the game at some point is a risk. Picked an injury, they are tired. Imagine if Mbappe goes in, makes a sprint, because at the end, mentally, you are not ready to compete 100%. You know that it is not needed. So your mind is thinking about what is going to happen in the next game. So you can pick a small injury in your thigh or in your hamstring or twist an ankle, because at the end, Tunisia is playing for everything. They need to win. So they are going to play 100%. You don't want to risk your best players. So I understand that this rotation happened. And when you make so many rotations, it's true that at the end, the understanding into the team is totally different. You don't know when to go forward, when to stay down. You start making a lot of gaps, a lot of maladjustment at the back. We've seen even Camavinga playing as a left back. That for
what did you make of it? Because obviously you see him week in, week out in La Liga, or when he's playing for Real Madrid. So to know that Deschamps was experimenting with that in training and then went for it, were you surprised?
Yes, definitely. Of course, I was surprised. I've seen it. I think he's a player who you can use him everywhere on the field that you want. He can play as a striker. He can play in midfield, as a winger, as a centre back if you want to ask him, because he's that kind of player. He understands football. It's true that he struggled because of distances, like I said, where to go forward or when to stick on the line. But there's been a few chances where he was totally lost and he was needed to track back and didn't see a player getting his back. But at the end, it was a trial. And this is the game that you can use it, because you don't know what is going to happen in the next game. Maybe you're going to need a player to be using that side. And we've seen it, and I'm going to compare again with the Spanish national team. Is the one I got closer. Rodri, that is a center holding midfielder for Manchester City, playing as a center back. When you got in your bench, Eric Garcia, you go Pau Torres, player, they are specifically for that position. But at the end, you need to do trials, and that sometimes it works. And well, today, I think it was a good game to see Camavinga in that position.
The one worry I take away from this game, And it doesn't help you when you're the lone starter from the last game and you're playing with really the B team around you. On the goal that Wahibi Kazri scores, I mean, he completely wrong foots Rafa Varane like he's not even there. I think some of the defensive displays, some of the lunging in, some of the positioning for a player like Varane, who was still coming back from that injury scare that he had in the Premier League with Manchester United. If he is going to be your center back pairing with the likes of a Kanate, you need to get him more up to speed. And this was a really big opportunity for him to showcase his leadership experience, to showcase more of a defensive presence. But this is a France team that when they're at full speed and at full tilt, they are scary, scary good. I expect the likes of a Varane to get better. I think this was a bit of a one-off given the changes for Monaco. Oh, not a good day at the office for Monaco players playing in this game. Youssouf Fofana, he was the one that turned the ball over in the middle of the park. Brilliantly done. And shout out to the Carthage Eagles. Tunisia getting a massive win against one of their foes of all foes, the French national team. And it had to be Kazri. Kazri was the player. First start for him. It was almost like a flashback to the last World Cup, where in that last group game, he had one goal and the game-winning goal. Here he is again 4 years later, getting the game-winning goal for the Carthage Eagles. So congrats to you and congrats to Tunisia fans everywhere. But with the French national team, now I'm really seeing, now we got the group games out of the way, players rested. It really shows you the impact, I think, in the back line of a player like Theo Hernandez, a player that plays in Serie A, captain for AC Milan. I think that this could be the World Cups of World Cups for him to show what he shows week in and week out in Serie A on the big stage.
Yeah, very good point. And I think as well, the same goes for Rabiot, because I don't think anybody expected him to play such a key role for this French team. Yet you take him out in the midfield, suddenly there's very little structure there. But let's throw it forward a little bit. Let's now look at the round of 16 games. You got France against Poland. We've already discussed that a bit. Obviously, we fancy the French quite considerably there. But the potential quarterfinal matchup now is either against England or Senegal. With all due respect to Senegal, you'd probably fancy England, over them. But, you never know. France and Senegal do have a bit of World Cup history. Senegal do have some quality players. But assuming that it is France and England, Lucho, that is going to be one of the, quarterfinal matchups. And, who do you think, certainly at this moment in time, who would you fancy coming out on top? Because surely it would be quite a tight one there.
Very tight. I mean, this could be perfectly a final, and they're going to face it just for a final. And we're going to miss one of the top teams, at least for me, was one of the my favorites in the beginning of the competition. And it's tough. I mean, I'm trying to think about how are they going to arrive? Who are they going to face? I think England playing against Senegal is going to be tougher than what France has got in front. I think it is going to ask them for a best effort. They're going to put everything to try to win, because physically Senegal is a lot stronger. We've seen them that they can come back from anything. So at the end, it's gonna be a little bit tougher for England to go through to that position. Once they arrive, let's see how everybody ends in those teams. If they still having Theo Hernandez, for example, for France, is ready to play in that game. If the players up front, they are arriving with the confidence that is needed. In the moment, for me, if I have to choose in between those, I think that France has got more strengths, more arguments up front, the ability and the players to create more threats to the opponent. After that, we'll see what happens, because, again, it's very difficult to try to call it from right now. Even into the game, we're going to see in these two teams with chances for both sides. But I don't see at the moment, the way that I've seen England right now, I don't see it with the strengths enough. I've seen it with ups and downs, roller coaster of emotion most of the time during the games, with sometimes a fantastic football and sometimes with a very poor read of the game, what is needed, and sometimes not seeing that they want to go for it. So in the moment, the way that I've seen both in the group stages, I think the France got more options to go through.
I just worry about which Gareth Southgate are we going to see? The one that managed the game against Wales, or the one that managed the game against the United States, which, hey, we'll take the one that managed the game against the US of A any day of the week, because that's just how I feel. With Gareth Southgate, you just had Marcus Rashford get 2 goals. I mean, just man of the match performance from him. Phil Foden coming in, starting, and those 2 players, Phil Foden, one of the most talented players on the field. You now have questions you have to ask if you're Gareth Southgate. going into that Senegal match. And if you win that, going into a possible quarterfinal tie against France. Do you play your best players, your most in-form players this season in the Prem, and really your most in-form, most dangerous players at this World Cup in the form of Phil Foden, Marcus Rashford? I think they get the best out of Harry Kane, but it also bodes a bigger question. If Bukayo Saka has 2 goals at this World Cup, do you put him on the bench? Do you start him ahead of one of those two? And are you willing to bench one of your go-to players in the last few years in Raheem Sterling? A lot of big questions in the lineup. There's more of a settledness for this France team. There's more of an acceptance of players' roles. And I think that's more of an homage to how Didier Deschamps manages French football, is players have their roles, players accept them, and there's more of a team environment around France that I think gives them the edge.